Hi everybody, my name is Victor Perez from Autodesk, straight from the Automotive Innovation Forum 2025 here in Darmstadt. This video is going to be talking about the new Blackwell generation of GPUs. We've got our hands on the RTX Pro 6000 Workstation Edition that's running 600 watts, and we also have the Max Cube Lower Edition that uses 300 watts. So we are going to be running 4 tests. We've scripted a scene that's going to be basically doing a turntable of the Genesis model scene that we have, and we are going to be running it in 4 modes. First one is going to be pure Vulkan. Second one is going to be Vulkan plus DLSS set to quality. Third one is going to be full ray tracing, and the fourth one is going to be full ray tracing plus DLSS set to quality. All of these scenes will run 2 passes, one for an exterior scene from a car and one for the interior of a car. Just as a quick disclaimer, I've also added the results of SLI, so in this case it's 2 RTX 6000 Pros Workstation Edition, so the 600 watt versions in SLI through the PCI 5.0. You will see that when we are running Vulkan, it will give exactly the same results as the non-SLI version, let's say. So one is going to perform as good as 2. That's because Vulkan, for the time being, is only supporting a single card. So where we will see the biggest results is going to be in full GI. So looking at the first results, talking about pure Vulkan, we see incredible improvements. We can see an improvement of a 40% for the Max Q edition. This is all based on the baseline that is set by the ADA, and we can see an insane 80% improvement for the Workstation edition. Really, this is the best case scenario, so we have a mix between ray tracing and rasterization, so we know that the full card is being used, and especially in this case when you look at the 600 watt version, you can see that it's using all of that extra power that it can get to power both the raster cores and the RTX cores at the same time. Then before I jump to the DLSS result, I just want to mention the interior is insane. We get a 64% improvement with the Max Q edition and a 112% you more than duplicate your frames with the RTX Workstation Edition, the 600 watt version. So that's just, I'm just trying to process this. The second test is with DLSS, so Vulkan plus DLSS. Here you can see that the reduced resolution from DLSS is actually not loading the cores as much. You can see the improvement is not as massive, but at the same time you still see a 30% improvement for the Max Q edition and a 70% improvement for the Workstation edition over the 6000 ADA. And again, these results, I think because the interior scene is actually more taxing. Here we can see a 42% improvement on the Max Q edition and an 86% improvement on the Workstation edition. So now coming to the ray tracing results, and here I am getting mixed results. There's a possibility that some of the features that came out in the new Vred 2026 collide with some of the features from the latest drivers from Nvidia. But nonetheless, we are getting around a 16% improvement for the Max Q edition and a 25% improvement for the Workstation edition over the 6000 ADA. Here, for example, what we see is we don't see such a big improvement from the Max Q edition to the Workstation edition, and I think this is because the ray tracing cores are not saturating that 600 watt pass, so that power difference doesn't actually make such a big difference compared to something like Vulkan that is using every core available. And finally, in the DLSS department, we are using ray tracing, full GI with DLSS, and in this case we are seeing a 10% improvement for the Blackwell generation in general compared to the ADA A6000, and a 20% improvement for the interior of the car from, again, Blackwell generation against the ADA generation. There's one last thing I want to touch on for this review, and it's that the first time I started testing, I was using a Lenovo P8 that had a 1000 watt PSU mounted in. I tried to put in the 600 watt version, the Workstation edition, Blackwell RTX 6000, and I was getting actually worse performance than the ADA version. After talking, kudos to Dali from Lenovo, he pointed me that there's 2 PSU versions, power supply versions, on the Lenovo P8. One of them is 1000 watt, the second one is 1400 watt. Actually, those 600 watts plus the CPU on my Workstation went over those 1000 watts. What the computer basically does in that case is just shuts the power off for the GPU. But in my case, usually it should tell you, but in my case it didn't. And basically what happened for me is I went from 50 FPS on the A8 to 38, but actually same computer, everything, with the new PSU basically triplicated my results. So I went from getting 38 FPS to 112. So if you have a computer that has a PSU from 1000 watts, upgrade that PSU, especially if you're pointing towards that workstation edition RTX Pro 6000, because otherwise your performance is going to be severely limited. So I think this video was useful. See you guys soon at AAF and enjoy!